Yep, you're in the right place because these are the flakiest southern buttermilk biscuits that you'll ever make. This is a true southern recipe, no fancy ingredients, and no shortcut. And there's one simple step that a lot of people skip that's going to make all the difference in your biscuits. Do this right, and your biscuits will rise up tall and flaky every single time. Stick with me, and I'm going to show you how to make those biscuits from scratch. So the first thing that we're going to do when we start to make our biscuits is we're going to get us 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And we're not using the self-rising, although I've got my White Lily self-rising out here because I don't have a label on my um, all-purpose flour. So just wanted you to see we're using the White Lily, but it is the all-purpose. Now, the best way to do this and to get your measurements exact, and that's the thing about this recipe is you do want exact measurements, is to spoon your flour into your cup. That way you do get a precise exact measurement. And you can fill it up to the line, or if you've got one of the ones that where you can just take it and then knock off what you don't want, you can do that. But this one's got a little line in the center of it, and so I'm going by that. So there's this 1 cup. All right, we'll get us our second cup going here. All right, let's see how close we are there on that. Maybe just a little bit more. That should get us 2 cups right there. All right. So the next thing we're going to add to our all-purpose flour is we're going to be using 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to just dump all that in there. And once we get that in there, we're going to just whisk that around just so we incorporate the salt and the baking powder and the baking soda. We want it all mixed in together real well. Alrighty, and that looks good. All right, so now our next step. So we've got about 7 tablespoons of butter here, and I've cut this butter into small little pieces. Now, when Grandma made these biscuits, sometimes she used butter, sometimes she used lard, sometimes she'd use vegetable shortening. It just depended on what she had on hand at the time. I always really like the ones she made with the butter, so I'm going to do the ones that have the butter in them. Now, once you cut your butter into these little pieces, and something that you might want to do, put your stick of butter in the freezer for maybe 15 minutes or so before you're ready to do this. And then after you cut them up like this right here, we're going to put them back in the freezer for about 3, maybe 4 minutes, just let them get good and firm again. So our butter has been in the freezer again for about, no, maybe 3 or 4 minutes just to get it good and firm again. So now we're ready to cut our butter into our flour mixture. So we're going to just take our butter and we're going to just drop it in there. It may be stuck to the paper a little bit, but that's not a hard thing to remedy. You just get your fingers in behind it or on top of it and push it all in there. Now, the reason we cut it in small pieces is because we're going to cut this into the flour, and it just makes it a whole lot easier if you got small pieces to work with. I have seen some people who will actually take like a grater that you use for grating cabbage or other vegetables and use that to grate their butter up. But this is how Grandma always did it. Now, if you haven't got one of these, this is a cutter for cutting in stuff into your flour. You can use a fork, just use a heavy duty fork and just cut it in. So that's what we're going to do here. We're just going to take this and we're going to cut that butter into our flour, and it'll just make little pieces of butter. And you'll have to knock it off occasionally so that you don't have just big chunks of butter. After you get your butter cut in, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to see little small particles of the butter. Now, if you're using one of those cutters like what I was using, you will have to periodically stop and take your fork and clear out the butter that's in the cutter and just fold some flour over on top of it and continue cutting. You may have to do that about 3 or 4 different times till you get your everything all cut up the way that you need it to be. And but you can, as I say, you can see kind of how you got some just small chunks of butter in there. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to make us a little well, and then we're going to pour 3/4 cup of buttermilk into that well. Let's try to get all of it out that we can because we're going to need all of it. All right, that's got that done. Now the next thing we're going to do, we're just going to start mixing it. And we just want to incorporate our dry ingredient into the wet ingredient. And once we get everything incorporated in, this is going to be a little bit of a dry biscuit dough to start off with, but this is what you want it to look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little bit of flour on my board, just kind of help it not stick. And doesn't hurt if you get a little bit of flour on your hands too. That'll kind of help a little bit. All right. And make a mess on the stove, but that'll be okay too. And now we're just going to turn all this out onto our board. And just be sure you get everything out of the bowl that you can. And then we're just going to kind of knead it together, but we don't want to overwork our dough. That's the main thing. Because if we overwork it, we're going to have a problem. All right. So we want to get it kind of like this. And just kind of pat it out a little flat. And then just fold it over. Pat it out a little more. Fold it over again. And if you have any pieces fall out, just grab them and put them back in and keep on going. All right. Let's do one more time of folding over. That didn't stick too bad to my hand, so that's a good thing. All right, and just kind of make a little square, kind of, and then go ahead and pat it out. And you want to mash your dough down to where it's probably maybe a 1/2 inch thick, maybe just a tad bit more than a 1/2 inch. Get your workout doing this. So we've got our dough patted out to about a 1/2 inch thick. And y'all, if you've watched one of my biscuit videos before, I usually use like a glass or a cup or something, but got these, so I'm gonna give them a try. These are made by Sunbeam and they're biscuit cutters, so we're gonna try them out today. First thing though is let's dip our biscuit cutter into the flour, and hopefully that'll help it to not stick to our biscuits. So then we're just gonna cut us out a biscuit. Try not to twist too much because everybody says that makes your biscuit not raise up good. So try not to twist too awful much. Great thing about these is you can just use your finger and press through the middle of it and get your biscuit out. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do put that dough back together and then do it. So let's get our pan over here. And I've also got our oven heating up to 425 on the temperature. And so we're going to just put our biscuits in. Not sure yet how many we're going to make, but when you put your biscuits in, always try to have them touching the edge of the pan or the skillet, whatever you're using, and touching each other just a little bit. So now we're going to take our leftover dough there, and again, don't work it too much. Just fold it over together and mash it back out to that about a 1/2 inch. Let's see if we can get 2 out of there. Let's go just a little bit more. All right. We just a touch bit more that we can get 2 out of it. All right. So there's just one more. And there's just 2 more. So this is what our biscuits are going to look like once we get them in the pan. Like I say, this is really a bigger skillet than what we needed to have to do these biscuits, but it's going to work out okay. We're almost up to 425, but something I was going to show you, but I had flour all over my hands. I was talking about using a rolling pin to roll your biscuits out. Now, my grandmother had a rolling pin. As a matter of fact, this is her rolling pin. And she used it sometimes, but I think she might have wanted to use it on my grandpa a few times and chase him around the house with it. But if she ever did, she only did it when the kids wasn't around. So, but if you do have a rolling pin and you want to use it, you can. But I suggest just patting them out by hand, just like I did. All right, so we are at 425 and we're ready to go in the oven with these. All right, so we got them in the oven and we're going to let those cook for about 13 to 15 minutes. So it doesn't take long at all. So we'll be back when they're ready. All right, y'all, so it's been about 15 minutes and our biscuits are ready and I've taken them out. And we got 4 really pretty ones. We got 2 maybe not so pretty, but we're going to brush us a little bit of butter on them too. That's going to make them really, really good. And even though they look like they're not super brown, once we put this butter on there, they'll turn a little bit darker color. Oh, these are going to be so good. I can already tell. A little bit more of that butter on that one. Go ahead and hit them with all we got so that We don't waste any of our butter. All right. All right, y'all. So we're going to let these set for just a minute or two and cool down because, as I said, just took them out of the oven. And once they cool down a little bit, we're going to come back and give one of them a taste. All right, y'all. It's a moment of truth. We're going to try one of these biscuits and see how they are. All right, and that's what they look like. And hopefully you're going to be able to see the steam come off of these when I break it in half. Oh, yeah. All right. I'm going to blow on this just a little bit because it is still super hot. See if I can cool it down a little bit so I don't burn my sensitive tongue. Although my wife says that I need to get to where I can eat this stuff hot straight off the stove, but I think she might be a little bit crazy, but hopefully this cooled down enough it doesn't burn me up. All right, let's give it a try. I have to give them 2 thumbs up and 2 more thumbs up. Those are so tender, so soft, a great buttery taste to them. They are just so good. Um, I'm gonna love having these. Gonna do another video, and we're gonna make some sausage gravy and make these biscuits to go along with that sausage gravy, and it will be wonderful. So y'all, thank you for watching. Remember, like and subscribe and share. Help us grow the channel. Every time y'all subscribe or like, it helps us to get into the algorithm on YouTube. So y'all help us out, and we'll see you next time.